Now, as a runner, to improve, I always thought I had to run further, harder, do double threshold training, something like that. But recently I had a very humbling experience which made me realise that to improve, I need to change things drastically. So sit back, relax, and let's talk about it. So in January of this year, I suffered a stress fracture of my femoral shaft on my left leg. Now, the main reason for sustaining this injury was running way too much with not enough fuel. And that's because as a runner, I've always kind of seen or been told that to get better, it's basically about volume, it's about mileage, and that basically the higher the number, if you're not in triple digits in kilometers, then you're not training hard enough. But recently I headed to DCM clinics in Kings Hill to do some performance testing to basically assess where I'm at and where I should be. At the clinic, I used 3 different tests to assess my ability to apply muscle and speed in movements that measure power. So these movements were a counter movement jump with 2 legs, a single leg counter movement jump, and a mid-thigh isometric pull, which is very similar to a deadlift. Suffering a stress fracture in my left leg, you would assume that coming back from that sort of injury, that the left leg power or my left leg muscular strength would be massively diminished. However, the testing that I did revealed quite the opposite. Now, before we delve deeper into what each test shows and what I can work on going forward and what this means that I'm lacking severely in my training and ultimately racing, I'm relatively strong, but I have absolutely no application of this power. I'm not able to use it when it comes to race-based situations or in my training. So for each of these tests, I'm assessed on the force I can produce, the difference between my left and right leg strength, and how I compare against other people my age that also take part in sport. So in essence, a percentile score, 0% meaning that everyone's stronger than me, and 100% meaning that everyone in my age group is weaker than me. So I just want to take a second to thank the sponsors of today's video. Bob and Brad are 2 physical therapists from America. Bob unfortunately is unwell at the moment. He's been diagnosed with cerebellar ataxia, which affects his coordination and his speech. So rest up, Bob. I wish you a speedy recovery. Himself and his partner Brad have kindly sent me a massage gun. I've mentioned it on the channel before. I just think this massage gun is just the best that I've ever used, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, I always thought that there was only one good brand when it came to muscle guns. You're probably thinking of the one that I'm thinking of right now. So when I first received this, I thought it was going to be kind of tacky and a bad material, loud, shaky, whatever word you want to use to describe it. But the quality of these massage guns is very, very good. They're light, they're quick, they're portable, and the one thing that I really like about this one is the head changes from hot to cold. And one of the main things I recommend some of my patients do as an osteopath is heat and ice as something they can do at home that's easy for them to do and that will help relieve their symptoms. So for me, currently nursing a little bit of a tendon problem, the heat function of this muscle gun is an absolute lifesaver, so I can get some extra blood flow to that tendon and keep it at bay while I keep training. So a massive thank you to Bob and Brad for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to me waffling about performance testing data. So we'll start off with the counter movement jump, which is what a lot of people understand as a broad jump. Hands on hips, isolating the legs completely. I scored 30 centimeters, which gave me a percentile rating of 20%, which essentially means that 80% of sporting people my age can score higher than me, which as an athlete who thought he was pretty up there in terms of his age group and especially up there in terms of runners, this was very humbling because it meant that the power that I have, I cannot apply to things like jumping or pushing myself forward or propelling myself like you do in running. Now on its own, this score isn't the be all or end all because, as you know, running is a single leg sport. So how did I compare when it came to testing the muscular strength or the power of single legs? So when I did this test on one leg each, so basically a single leg jump from each leg, it got even worse. It got much, much worse. We'll start off with the right leg, my predominantly stronger leg. So my right leg has scored 26.4 watts per kilogram of body weight, giving me a 12 percentile score, meaning that 88% of sporting people my age are stronger than me when it comes to jumping on their right leg. Now you might think, Cole, how does jumping translate to how you perform or how you run? But essentially, running is jumping from one leg to the other just over and over again. So if I can't maximum output much force, how am I supposed to produce much force at a lower percentage? It's a bit like training. If you're unable to run at 3 minutes per kilometre, how would you expect to comfortably run at 3:30 per kilometre? It's that sort of thing. But moving on to my left leg, where I suffered a stress fracture, I was actually stronger when it came to isolating my left leg compared to my right. So I scored 26.8 watts per kilogram, which is actually very symmetrical, which is a good thing in terms of injury risk, but it meant I was only the 14th percentile, meaning 86% of people are stronger than me for my age. And moving on to the final test that I did, which was an isometric mid-thigh pull, which is very similar to a maximum deadlift. I scored 2,253 newtons, which is about 225 kilograms, and this scored me 25th percentile, which means that 75% of people my age that take part in sport are more able to apply power and strength in a mid-thigh pull stronger than I can. Now you have to take these with a pinch of salt, because I completely understand that not all sports require more endurance than strength. So say for example, a scrum half did this test, then obviously muscular strength of their legs matters much more for their sport. But in general, I do think runners need strong legs. So to only score 25th percentile for someone who considers himself sub-elite trying to get to that next level, this was so humbling for me. So what it means for me, in terms of how I've been training, up till now I've been doing low weight, high reps stuff when I've been going to the gym on top of my training. But it means that when it comes to races, I've never had that sixth gear, that kick at the end, because I have no power, I have no capacity to go that much harder, and that's because I don't train at a strength or an intensity when I'm in the gym to be able to shift my body quick enough. And this is definitely something that I've noticed in myself. I've always thought, well, it doesn't matter how many 200-meter reps that I do, I just can't find that extra gear when it comes to races. I always get out-kicked at the end of a race. And now the data shows me that it's because I lack the strength to perform those kicks. So going forward, what am I going to implement into my training? I'm going to implement low rep, high weight stuff, with obviously warming up properly first, but so that I can improve my muscular strength capacity and application of that power, so that I can develop that speed when it comes to the end of a race, because I've got the strength to do so. Now that doesn't mean you just scrap the training and the easy miles are out the window, because you definitely need the aerobic capacity, because if you're not there at the end of the race, then you can't sprint. But what does this mean in terms of adding it to my training? It means that I need to adapt my S&C, I need to adapt my gym work alongside my training, so that I can get stronger whilst I also get fitter and more aerobically conditioned. To put it into context, when I did a hand grip squeeze test, which is essentially a dynamometer where you squeeze as hard as you can and bring it round to the side to compare how hard you can squeeze, I scored 47th percentile, and this is for a muscle group that I never ever trained. So if anything, relative, my upper body is stronger than my lower body compared to what it should be, if that makes sense. Yeah, there's some clear weaknesses that I need to address. So the main exercises I'm going to be incorporating to improve this strength is going to be things like maximum deadlifts, maximum squats, things like that. If you're unsure at all, consult someone that's rehab trained, a PT, a sports osteo, cheeky little plug. But yeah, essentially working on developing that power, developing that strength in a functional application, as well as just simple free weights, such as weighted box jumps, something like that. Now you might have come this far into the video and be like, Cole, why are you telling us this stuff? And essentially the reason why I'm telling you the things that I've been able to identify in my own training as huge weaknesses, and this is something that I've neglected for years. This isn't like, oh, I haven't done the gym for the last 6 weeks. This is I have not done high weight, low rep stuff ever. So I lack the power, I lack the strength to even go any quicker. All I've been doing is just training my aerobic system to its absolute limits, essentially. So essentially what I'm trying to do is highlight to you that there is testing available out there for you to identify the weaknesses in your training and focus on getting the 95% better, rather than focusing on those 1% first, if that makes sense. I see so many patients that come to me that say, oh, I really want to get quicker. Have you tried those shoes? Have you tried these gels? I'm thinking, these people are the same people that don't even get out the door for a couple of easy runs a week, and all they do is park run and just absolutely hammer it. If they can get those easy runs first, that 95% of their training right, they'd see so much more improvement than just those 1%, the gels, what they had for breakfast, things like that. They're important, but it's coming up with the main bulk, getting that right first. And that's what I'm trying to do in mine. I've been trying to work on the double threshold, the getting up at 5 AM, as if that even matters, when actually the training I've been doing hasn't been quite right for me to develop in the way that I want to develop as an athlete. So I hope you found this useful. It's been quite an eye-opening experience for me to do this testing, to identify these huge weaknesses in my training, and this is applicable for anyone from 100 meters all the way up to a marathon, where identify your weaknesses and get them sorted, because there's the people out there that can help you do that and to help take your training to the next level. So yeah, well and truly humbled is not even half of it. I thought I was pretty strong, but it turns out the numbers say different. So anyway, I hope you found this interesting. If you have any questions, please drop them down below. I plan on implementing this strength training for certain periods into my training, so I can then come back and assess it at different points. So say for example, the next 6 weeks, I might do slightly more heavy lifting in the gym to develop that strength, and then I'll ease off a little bit for a period of another 6 weeks per se, because obviously you've then got to balance building the muscle with the strength. But anyway, I hope you have enjoyed. Please like, subscribe, share with your running buddies, and yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.